Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ghazi Iqbal bin Khaliluddin. My metric number 2216171, and today I will present to you about introduction to the Islamic worldview, joined by my two other friends who will present the presentation later after I do. So today I will present you about the introduction about the worldview. So a worldview or Weltanschauung in the German language is the fundamental cognitive orientation of an individual or society, encompassing the whole of the individual's or society knowledge, culture and point of view. Worldview can include the natural philosophy, fundamental, existential and normative postulates of or the themes, values, emotions, and ethics. So recent attempts have been made by Islamic academics to explore a variety of subjects and problems that are seen as belonging to the Islamic worldview as a whole rather than particular of the study of worldview. The definition of worldview according to Islam is faith is sin. Islam as the way of life, monotheism, creation, prophethood, the science of the afterlife, things visible and invisible, gods and humans, and life are just a few of the themes covered. An example of worldview described by the ancient Islamic philosophers such as Said Qutb's essay, which is explain about the characteristics of the Islamic worldview. So we will move on chapter 1, which will cover about the glimpse on studies and definitions. So the glimpse on the historical development of the Islamic worldview studies. Shortage of studies on the development on the concept of study from the historical and conceptual reference to contemporary and contributions of Islamic scholar to worldview. So the focus of the ongoing study is primarily on how the concept of a worldview introduced within the framework and tradition of Islam, the conceptual growth and evolution of a worldview within that Islamic setting, as well as its historical and philosophical viewpoints from an Islamic viewpoint. So therefore there is no value in the traditional work and book of Islam because there was no field of knowledge known as worldview studies. One example that I can particularly give about is the Tasawwuf al-Islami. There is no evidence of the combined phrases and the usage of the aforementioned combined words to represent the idea of worldview, and its significance was not suggested by works on theology. So, so the next slide will tell about the definition of the Islamic worldview. Al-Tawhid as a key element in the definition and conceptualization of the Islamic worldview as a collective vision of life and vicegerency. Tawhid, from the Islamic viewpoint, is the crucial component of the Islamic worldview definition and conceptualization. The starting point of Al-Tawhid is the realization of the vision of life, which Islam provides man with a comprehensive worldview that is rooted in a coherent system of ideas and beliefs that, when taken together, give faith, strength, and vitality. Al-Tawhid, or the unity of God, is stressed as a guiding principle in the perspective of life. Tawhid is a broad description of reality. Al-Tawhid should therefore be at the center of every definition and conception of the Islamic worldview. Or to put it another way, any discussion of the Islamic worldview should center on the idea that this worldview stems from fundamental premise that life exists becomes the outcome of the will, desire, and design of the one and only creator, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Islamic conception of God has therefore to precede any discussions on the nature of the universe and man's relations on it. Observation on how should we understand and approach the Islamic worldview. The term Islamic worldview refers to comprehensive and all-encompassing conceptions of reality that address a variety of existential themes and problems. The universe, life, some prophets, truth, history, and hereafter all exist because God is the primary cause of all creation. One of the problem statement issued by other people such as who is God, who am I, how am I brought to the world, or what are the miracles and evidence of prophet and messenger, and what happened to us after death. A closer examination of the preceding sets of questions reveals a comprehensive and all-encompassing structure of knowledge pertaining to Islamic worldview. Indeed, all these questions must be answered in a systematic, organized, and correct manner in order to construct a worldview worthy of consideration and capable of addressing human problems and concerns. So we move on to chapter 2, historical development and definition of a concept. So the worldview studies historical development. Worldview is a term and concept of mere merit and interest and increasing interest of scholars and researchers. Historical development worldview study. Looking at interview studies from German perspective show increasing interest. Several German studies on worldview and argued those studies are influential. So, according to the David K. Naugel's work, which claim that there are a few studies on the history of worldview as a word and concept, it appears that this statement does not apply to the entire Western world. Looking at worldview studies from a German viewpoint, Nagel claims that there is growing interest in specialized and in-depth publication on the subject. It is significant to note, based on to another David K. Nagel address, that Nagel has made a significant effort to credit the many contributions of the Western academic community in general and the German academic community in particular on worldview studies. So the last one for my part is the worldview in some Western dictionaries. As an example, the Oxford English Dictionary, published on 1989. Second one, the Oxford Dictionary of Philosophy, published on 1994. The American Heritage Dictionary of the English Language.
Alright, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Muhammad Daniel bin Saidi. Method number 2211811. So we continue the presentation. So for this slide, worldview as perceived by some Western scholars. Uh, assumption assumption the anthropologist uses to explain a people's total response to their universe, sometimes called worldview. So this provide rational, evident, and scientific ground. Uh, So for summary, there is two summary. First one is conceived as a map and or guideline that provide model and reality. Second one is seen as a systematic and organized way with which group of people view the world. So for chapter 3 is worldview, objective, kind and approach. So for the objective, we got three objective here. The first one is comprehensive vision, consistent, all-inclusive explanation of universe and reality. The second one is guidance and orientation for the betterment of man's life. And the last one is man know who he is and his place in the universe. Any confusion or doubt is removed and peace of mind can be achieved. So for the next slide is kind. So we can see that there is five or six kind. So The first one is revelation based. Second is preserved or non-preserved religious, and we can say the other three is man-made, moral, ethical based, and scientifical oriented. So the man-made is philosophical oriented. So the world view that somehow contradict in answer and interpretation of certain matters will fall prey to its own contradiction. So for this slide, for approach, um, there is three, three things. So the first one is scientific, philosophical, and religious. So the first one, scientific, uh, human intellect and reasoning is the controller of interpretation. Facts, belief are subject to questioning, limit itself to limit to physical reality and observable universe. Only technological advancement may cause different understanding. So that's the first one. The second one is philosophical. Logical reasoning and speculative methodology, self-proven and self-evident, premise evident, which are undeniable to the human mind and carried by logical deduction. The last one for approach is religious, comprehensive overview and vision of the universe, truth and life, claim possession of the truth along with evidence of the truth, maintain the stability and eternality through preservation of religious texts. So that's all for chapter 3, and now we move on to chapter 4. That is general overview and foundation of the Islamic worldview. So, and the first one is connection between man and Allah. So we know that we as a human being have a connection with our God. So there is three things. The first one is the mankind is the vicegerent of Allah and has been given amanah. So as we know amanah, we all know amanah is a responsibility for us as a human being that we need to complete it as a sign that we worship Allah. And the second one is Allah orders mankind to use this blessing for good use. And the last one is Allah bless mankind with different backgrounds so that they got to ta'aruf. So for this one, uh, we know that all human beings are different. So with this different, we can learn, we can know about each other different. That that's why we cannot be racist. That because racist we know we racist we didn't accept other race, right? So because of that we didn't get to ta'aruf with each other. So I think that's all for me. So I will pass for the next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Ghazi and Brother Afif. I will continue about philosopher views and opinions on connection between man and Allah. Philosopher Al-Faruqi once said, "The core of principle of Islam itself is Al-Tawhid." And Muhammad Kamal Hassan said, "The core of principle of Islam consists of monotheism, which is belief in one God and that his universe and his dominion over all created things is absolute." Whilst Sayyid Dusuki once said, "The principle of Islam consists of the principle of unity of God." Next, we will move on to the characteristic of Allah and Islam. We will go through to the characteristic of Allah. Allah is the omnipotent, the omniscient, the omnipresent, and the absolute, while the characteristic of Islam is religion. Religion of Islam comes from its revelation and prophethood, which is absolute as Allah is the truth. Have you thought about What has Allah assigned to mankind? First, to seek knowledge by reading. Second, ijtihad, which means pondering over Allah's creation. Third, Allah has arranged the laws, patterns, and orders of the universe and life itself. Fourth, Allah has ordered mankind to exploit these creations in a positive way. Fifth, this creation should be protected as it is mankind's responsibility as a Khalifa. Sixth, everything good comes from Allah and that bad things come from humans themselves. After that, we will look on Google Form research about Islamic worldview on feminism. Based on our research above, most of the respondents are Malaysian, which is 92.9%, while non-Malaysians are about 7.1%. It also shows us that 100% of the answer come from the students. Male respondents are 64.3% more than female respondents. For the age range, most of the respondents are 20 to 25 years old with 57.1%. There are some from age 15 to 20 years old and 25 to 30 years old with 28.6% and 14.3% respectively. First of all, 92.9% respondents believe that life exists as the outcome of the will, desire, and design of the one and only Creator, while some of them also believe that life is a combination of various gods and deities. 50% of the respondents describe the comprehensive of life provided by Islam or Sharia, and there are some who also choose Al-Tawhid, Sunnah, and Ijma with 35.7%, 7.1%, and 7.2% respectively. Next, many respondents describe the role of women in Islamic society as the active participant in various spheres of society, and they also believe that women should have equal access to education and career opportunities without any restriction or limitation majorly. 85.7% of the respondents believe that women should have the right to hold leadership positions within religious institutions, with some restriction or limitations, while another 14.3% of the respondents believe that women can serve as religious leaders like a man, and in about 64.3%, respondents answer that the Islamic conception of God is what should precede discussion about the nature of the universe and man's relation to it. Based from the Islamic worldview, for seven one I'm sorry, for seven I'm sorry, for 71.4% respondents thought it is acceptable and permissible to practice polygamy in Islam, while another 28.6% thought that it should be discouraged but should not banned. In 50% of the respondents showed that divorce right only should be on men's hand. 42.9% believe that women should have the right to divorce with conditions and requirements, and 7.1% not sure how to answer the question. There are about 9 responses from respondents who answered the question above. 3 of them did not know how to answer, and another 6 give their opinion on how does the Islamic worldview view the issue of female leadership and political participation. 2 of them believe that in Islam there are uphold the dignity of women, such as the story about Siti Khadijah. Meanwhile, three respondents believe women can be a great leader to some extent and need a help from others while following the Sharia of Islam. And for the last one respondent, he believed that women are less suitable because it will make them to work under pressure. Thus, we come to a conclusion about the topic that we present to you, which is the Islamic worldview. And thanks for the representative before me, which is Ghazi Iqbal and Afif Daniel. If there is a mistake on our representation, we would like to apologize for our carelessness. And thank you for listening to this representation.